is to elect a pro tem chair for the day, since our chair and vice chair are absent. So what that involves is somebody nominating somebody with a motion and somebody seconding it. And you all agree to it. So
I didn't do it.
what's that?
Right.
I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed, opposition, say no. Okay, so hearing none, Rick, you wanted the chair for today, so. Okay, take it away.
Let's do this already. It is now 4:00. 4:02. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Planning Commission workshop for Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 16:04. Determine the quorum. Do we have a quorum? Let's see, 5 of us here. We have a quorum. Of commissioners here in attendance, so we have a quorum. I have to read this, so I might get lost a few times, but bear with me. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
A motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Let's go. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous, okay. All of that. Okay, motion carries. So, part 2. Our city council liaison is not in attendance today, I think.
No, it looks like he's not.
Okay. So we'll just skip over his remarks, but we're gonna save a lot of time. Can I interject a few things here? Ad lib. So visit communication, this is the time provided for individuals wishing to address the planning commission on some issue not on the agenda. Is there anyone in attendance physically or on Zoom that would like to address the planning commission on items that aren't on the agenda? If so, did anybody sign up?
Oh, yeah, we got one, I'm sorry.
Okay. So we have one. Is there anybody online that wants to also? Okay, so you come to this podium, state your name and address. So we have it on record.
Mark Dickens, 133 East Black Crater Avenue here in Sisters. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As some of you may know, I have been, active in past years with projects here in City of Sisters. My background is in construction, real estate development, over 4 decades. So when I get up here and talk about this, it's based on, real life background and experience. I attended the grand opening a few days ago of the, I guess it's the Transportation Hub, East Portal site, and was very disappointed and saddened by what I saw. I hope my comments will be constructive, but I just was appalled at how poorly designed and engineered and executed this first phase of the project is at over $1 million+ of taxpayer money. I've taken a couple dozen photographs that I'm going to mark up the backs of comments, puts my comments on there, and then I'll turn them in, and I hope that you'll take the time to go through and look at them. I don't know if the Planning Commission is involved in any kind of formal capacity, first of all, in reviewing these projects. If not, you should be, and there should be a little more scrutiny given. Let me give you an example of some of the things that I observed in about 15 minutes that should have never happened. This is the restroom building facility. If you look at the entryway, the roof, the step down roof there, you see where it ends, it terminates. It ends right over the top of the center of the walkway going into both the men's and women's bathrooms. That means any water, ice, snow comes right down and dumps right on that concrete walkway. There's also exposed rafter tails, which will rot out. This is just shocking to me that this would be allowed to be designed or built. The bathroom building is also over 150 feet away from the handicap parking spaces, where you have to walk down the concrete walkway, then cross the road for buses to get over to the bathroom building. That's another huge flaw and dangerous. Here's another quick picture of the roof. So there's numerous things that I don't know who the contractor was, who's got oversight from the city. But as I recall, this was a 3-phase project with a total budget of about $4 million. And, there's a couple things I learned in my career years ago. First of all, you have to be extremely conscientious when you're spending other people's money. And unfortunately, sadly, government does not have a good reputation of doing that very well. And I was here last night listening to the presentation and this proposal to spend about $10–11 million on another big project here in the city of Sisters. And I'm just wondering who's making these decisions, who's designing these things, who the contractor is, and who at the city has oversight. This is kind of embarrassing. This is an opportunity to do something really beautiful, to create a landmark, something that really represents the city of Sisters. Everything about this project that I see is a failure, from the color palette, this drab gray, instead of, semi-transparent stain, natural wood with some ornamental ironwork that could have been done by Ponderosa Forge. This stuff is just hardware that you get right out of a local hardware store, Home Depot. It's terrible. The lighting is inadequate. Here's another huge fundamental thing. A large portion of the project so far is dedicated to this RV only driveway road with this dump station. Well, the width of the driveway, you couldn't even get 2 cars through there at one time. So if one RV is stopped at that dump station, another RV coming in is required to turn down that road only. And now they're stuck. They're backed up. They can't even do a loop and get out of there. And if they are lucky to get out of there, there's nowhere for them to park. There's no oversized vehicle parking. So you've created this RV facility with no parking. And a lot of RVs tow trailers. So if one of those guys gets in there, now they're stuck. They can't back out. This whole RV thing should have been incorporated into the bus lane, and you could have utilized one road and then had a pull-out shoulder. But instead, now you've taken up more room on the site and paved more area to separate out the bus and the RV use. So there's some real fundamental flaws in this whole project. So again, I don't want to try to sit here and bash everything about this, but I would hope that the city would really take it upon themselves to really look at the details and to focus on this and do reviews and monitor the project and find out how many times these contractors are subbing these things out, because that's oftentimes what happens. There's no real oversight. One guy bids, another guy subs, and on and on. By the time the thing gets built, there's nobody there even checking it against the drawings and making sure. So anyways, I applaud the effort, but please, we could do better as a city, and we have an opportunity to do something, and this needs to be fixed. This should be corrected. There should be no more money spent on that project of $4 million until these things are corrected. So again, thank you for your time, and try to,
Can I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
So, I appreciate the critical thinking. I agree with almost everything you said there. I've been there, I reviewed it. It's really important for somebody like you to come in, because we have these meetings where like, hey, come look at the new Peace Portal. Here's our design. And like, the room is empty.
Yeah, I was here during all those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's like, nobody shows up to this.
Yeah.
Until we make a decision and it's a bad decision, then everybody comes.
Yeah.
Before that,
Yeah.
we have these long meetings and nobody's here.
Yeah, no, I remember, Corey Misley, that was kind of his brainchild. I was here years ago when all this started. I was against it from the very beginning. I thought it was a bad, ill-conceived plan, a bad idea. I distinctly remember being here the night that they voted to start spending that first $1 million. I actually wrote an email to the city manager, to Jordan, blasting it, saying this is terrible, it's outdated, you don't need these EV charging stations. They've already built them at Ray's. So maybe it's time to go back and revisit the whole project and maybe revise it and scale it back, and don't spend this $4 million. Just reevaluate everything. A lot of this stuff can be corrected. These things that I'm just showing you here, luckily.
You don't have to show us.
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah.
I almost everything you pointed out.
Yeah, well, that's a fraction, but I appreciate you,
Yeah.
being engaged in it. So thank you. Like I said, I would hope this can be constructive, and we could just look at doing better. Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else here in person that would like to speak? Is there anybody on the
Oops.
Engineer, I mean, when you like they. Yeah, once it's designed.
I don't know what happened.
It doesn't go off track, but it has to stay. I mean, that part is risk.
So now, bottom right.
Yes, yeah.
That's okay. Okay. Goody, where is my goody? There it is. Okay. There we go. Okay. Dispense. But how do I get, you get out here, right? You get to click on it here. No, that over one. There you go. Okay, there we go.
Got it?
Okay, yeah, got it. Sorry.
Did you look up some participants? And click on that participants there. Is any attendance?
Okay. No attendees,
Where
Rick.
did you train yet? I know that, but
Just a little movement of the fingers can cause totally with us.
yeah.
Sorry, guys. Okay, Rick, no, Zoom attendees.
Okay. So approval of the minutes, and I see we have no minutes to approve today. So we'll move into the workshop. And at this point, I'll turn it over to staff to lead.
Thank you, Pro Tem. That's it. Appreciate that. So this is another effort to lead some educational opportunities for the planning commission as we hit some stretches where we don't have a whole lot on the agenda. This is kind of a, I haven't seen a stretch like this since I started here, where we have so many breaks in between you know, projects coming forward, but plan commission approval or code amendments, things of that nature. So it's a good time to use this as an opportunity to find areas that the planning commission wants to have more education on. We did the one with the infrastructure and the transportation that seemed well received, and then we asked if there's anything else you guys wanted education on. So we heard the development code and the general overview on that. So what we're going to do today is kind of lead you through kind of how the code is laid out. We have our online code as our guide that we use. I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to find this on the city website, but this is a great tool and a tool that we use ourselves quite frequently during the day, and I think a lot of the public has gotten to the point where they have discovered it and use it as well. And so, what's most accessible on this that I found in terms of navigating, you can certainly navigate it over on the left by doing these drop down screens, but probably the easiest way to do it if you don't know exactly what to look for is to just put something in the search. Usually comes up, but wherever, say the word downtown shows up in the code, shows up over here because the word chapter is. So that's a great tool to use. So you may know this, you probably know this, that the development code is part of the municipal code. If you drop down the municipal code, lots of different chapters that other departments tend to live in more than you do. You know, a code enforcement officer lives in this in the chapter, the nuisance chapter. The police officers probably hang out in Title 10. Our public works department in Title 12. So there's a bunch of different aspects of the municipal code. But the one that we live in most often is Title 16, the development code. And so this exercise today is meant to not just be Matt and I kind of talking about things in the code that we think are interesting. We want you guys to tell us also things that are on your minds about where are things, why are things the way they are. When you think about specific projects out there, how do they come to be? Why are they the way they are? It's a good chance that you know, it was something in our development code that made that happen. Obviously, the old things things that happened a long time ago were pre-development code, and just kind of happened because somebody thought it was nice, and that's all they could afford. But since the zoning code has been adopted, this is part of the reason why development occurs the way it does. And so, looking at the way it's laid out, we'll just kind of give you an overview of the layout of the code. Starting with basically just chapter one, kind of just more the administrative part of the code. Starting with kind of how to use the development code. This is a good summary. We don't often go over these areas. This has been a good exercise for me. I don't know about you, Matt, to kind of see some parts of the code that we don't go to all the time, such as chapter one. But it provides a nice overview of all the different chapters and what the purpose of them are. If you're looking for just a quick summary, that's a great place to go to. So in terms of chapter 1.2, this is just a lot of kind of administrative parts of the code. It kind of has the fundamental principles of the development code. It talks about, where compliance with the development code is required in either 1, 2, or 200. So if it ever became an issue, somebody saying that they didn't think that the code applied, this is where they go and say, well, but it is. It does apply. Talks about some different things. If you have different code provisions where they're in conflict with each other, this provision in C talks about where the most restrictive provision would apply if there's any conflict between standards. Talks about requirements of building code and fire code, public works standards, things of that nature. It also talks about pre-existing approvals, things that were developed before the code are legally able to continue on the way they are. They were approved under different circumstances. If they were to come in and change something to that, then that's when that new code would begin to, or the existing code would begin to apply.
What's a good example of that? What do you know?
Oh, like anything downtown, like anything old, like one of the old buildings that would come forward that was built in the 40s, and now it's
just something.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's kind of what is the scope of the change, and what do we have the right to require a whole host of new improvements, bringing them up to standards, or we have standards we have to kind of abide by that are commensurate with the amount of change proposed. So, if it's just a small little addition, it's hard to, say bring a street frontage up to standard of new sidewalks. It has to be proportionate to what the level of change is requested. So it gets a little more challenging with how much can we bring in the negative performance with. So it's a little bit of a what we call negotiation, but it's kind of what seems appropriate for the proposal. So that's kind of gives all some background information in terms of how we use the code. And then what Matt's going to talk about is definitions. I'm going to be more on Harvey today, going back and forth.
Yeah, and as we kind of get introduced here, kind of give you a point of reference. We used to love this development code around with us always tabbed, noted as our reference guide. Now we've got an online portal that's the updated and the easily accessible, searchable aspect of our development code. So we've gone a long way, and a chance to have one point of reference for all of us, right? We all have those older documents that are our sidekicks that we use. So I think the other companion to our development code is our zoning map, and the zone maps and the zone districts that are detailed. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but we use this as our point of reference on how to get there, and then the details of the development, what actually happens on the properties. But we start with words and what do they mean? And in our world, there are many terms and specific words that mean specific things to us in the development world. However, there are all those common words that we look to that aren't defined specifically in our code, that we look to Webster's dictionary. But if not that case, we're looking at specifically defined terms. So when you as our citizen planners and us as the professional planners, when we see a terminology in the code that we're not sure what it means, and it appears to mean something specific, we're always going back to this definition chapter for that guidance. If not here, then we're going to Webster's. Not walking through every definition, but noting that, for example, what's an auto-dependent use? One could, kind of construct that in the mind. But we go back to this definition as it relates to a particular use that's specified in the code. So these, for example, is the use services motor vehicles and would not exist without them, such as vehicle repair, gas station, quick lube facility, car wash, auto and truck sales. We're gonna think, okay, that's the kind of parameters of what the concept of what that type of use is when we're looking to either someone's proposing it and therefore where we want to consider that. Others that really come into mind when we're talking about individual lot development are our lot related definitions. I think that lot would be relatively simple, but we get into location, orientation of lots. Are they interior lots? Are they corner lots at the intersection of streets? And from there, what are the lot lines? You have your property lines around there. Well, which one's which? Which one's the front? Which one's the rear? Which ones are the sides? So again, you could think that you could look at it and think that that's pretty clear. It's important to define that because as we get into the development standards later, the setbacks and other standards are specific to which lot line that we're talking about. And one other that came to mind is significant trees. Tree preservation is important in this community, of course, and it's important to know what significant mean as it relates to the code. In our definition, it's any tree 8 inches greater in diameter at breast height, or 4.5 feet above the grade. So point being is that significant tree in your own mind may have varying definitions or criteria. But for us, as we apply these standards in the code, we look to these specific definitions. Please chime in if you have any questions about, well, what's this mean? And as you've interfaced with the code or as we work our way through the details of the code and its construct. Again, you may be you've had decisions or projects come to you before, or you're out there in the community and you're observing things like, well, how did that come to be? Was there something specific that would have looked?
What was the plan of thinking?
Yeah, so I do have a question.
What was the planning commission?
Yeah, like corner lots, for example, which one's your frontage street, because it makes a huge difference on your garage setback.
Exactly. And
and how do you determine that? Is that
and as corner lots and jumped away, but as it's defined, you have your front property line and the property owner, the applicant, has that opportunity to identify which is their front property line in that corner lot configuration. So that's where you can, and how you're going to orient the build. Because again, as you orient the building, orient your garage, your setbacks are different and from the different property lines. So that's a great example.
It can become really challenging when you have some really funky shaped lots.
Yeah.
But we get into a lot of questions and trying to determine what is the front and what's the rear. That's why we don't like to create those kinds of lots.
Yeah.
If we can control it, but we couldn't control it back in the day. So it does get challenging from time to time.
So we move on to chapter 2. This is our land use districts. This is where we house those zone districts and the particular uses that are allowed, and if so allowed, what the development standards are within those districts. As you see, we have a variety of zone districts, base zones from residential to commercial, industrial, etc., business park. We have a couple of overlay districts, the airport overlay district that applies to Sisters Eagle Airport that has particular design building height standards, which are below that zone district, as well as a special flood hazard area overlay district, or commonly referred to as floodplain related to White Creek. Again, if you're within that floodplain, There are special standards that go above and beyond what your underlying zone district allows or requires. I just wanted to dive into, pick out a couple of these real quick. Multifamily residential district, by name, you think that multifamily residential is allowed, and it certainly is. But as you'll see in the allowed land use table, a variety of uses are allowed in the residential district. So we're not just limited to multifamily, single family is allowed, but beyond that, there are some other commercial or public institutional uses that are allowed. And in the table, you see the notation of P, SP, and CU, or MCU in other zone districts. Permitted, the P stands for permitted. Those are those that are permitted, what we'll call outright within the district, but still subject to the development standards within the district. The MCU or CU is a conditional use, so it's allowed, subject to a further evaluation of the size, scale, location, operating characteristics as it relates to the surrounding land uses, compatibility with those surrounding land uses. MCU is minor conditional use. It's really the same criteria, it's just the review path that we'll touch on. And then we get into what the development standards are. So with particular uses, there are different lot size requirements, depending on what you're proposing throughout the land division. And then setbacks from property lines. That's the separation of any structures, buildings from lot lines to create some separation for safety, privacy, other factors. And those from there, those defined property lines and lot lines that we talked about. And building heights are unique to individual districts, etc. I don't want to get bogged down in those particular details, but I just wanted to highlight that we do have those standards in place. We also have other development standards that do apply that are unique to the individual districts. From fencing standards to garage requirements, for example, residential district require 1 garage for single family dwellings. Density standards, meaning the number of dwelling units you can have per acre. But going a bit further, for any residential development, we do have design standards that you have particular articulation, design features for those buildings. So a minimum number of features to give an aesthetic, a character to each of the structures. So I will, unless you have.
What's the deal with the Pine Meadows Road?
So just in general.
Well,
We'll touch on it.
It's got its own thing. I noticed it as its own thing.
Understood. So I thought it was just in general.
As a people. I
So
noticed it as its own subcategory. Why is that? What's the deal?
yeah, so at the time that it was developed, it's a master plan, and so we'll touch on that a bit more detail later. Master plans are your larger developments, larger acreage that we're looking at it as an entirety, not a smaller subdivision, less than 10 acres. With Pine Meadow Village, the time that was approved, one, you can go through that master plan review process and identify particular requirements, design, layout requirements within that district. At the time Pine Meadow Village was approved, they chose a process of adopting those development standards into the development code. So it was a particular kind of strategy to adopt within the development code that specific subdivision standards. So it's kind of carved out.
The county first,
And it started out of the county, and you'll see that in different communities, different strategies. Looking at City of Bend is one example. Northwest Crossing, just as a larger development, was approved with its own zone districts and particular criteria within that development itself. Yeah, and I think it was the complexity of the Pine Meadow Village and the different sub areas of town home development, the condo area, and then the single family and the common areas as well.
I think so. We adopted their rules, and then they had like 10 years, and then their rules expired, and then they kind of started going to the cities. like this different, that we're talking about today.
And,
Or there was some period of time where we accepted that subdivision as it is, and then they could build. They could build on using their own code for that period of time, and then after that expired, then they had to start complying with our code.
And using Woodlands as a newer development that has different zone districts, different allowed uses within that development. Instead of adopting the development code, those details are embedded within the land use. So with that, I'll throw it to Scott.
And just a couple of other thoughts on the MFR, even though single family is allowed, you'd be hard pressed to create a single family subdivision within the MFR, unless you pair it with some high density, because we have minimum density requirements in the multifamily zone, which we increased recently, because what we were seeing were small lot, single family subdivisions being built in our multifamily zones. And so we wanted to preserve the purpose of the multifamily zone, so we increased the minimum density. It's not made it impossible. I think Sunset Meadows came in before. I think we changed the minimum density. So that type of arrangement probably wouldn't be allowed in this. They wouldn't be able to get that approved with the new density requirements.
And touching on the density real quick, came before the planning commission a couple, 2-3 years ago with the efficiency measures that went above and beyond, created higher density, additional allowed uses to provide additional opportunities for more housing units within the existing city limits. That would be one of those updates that came before planning commission. So they codified and then be administered.
And most of these decrease.
ADUs have long been allowed, but it is one of those additional housing options. With the efficiency measures, it was higher density, higher building heights for multifamily, triplexes, and more areas, fourplexes, more and higher density.
The ones that just got approved over in the downtown commercial zone.
Yes.
They took advantage of some also associated with efficiency measures, which were some affordable housing density bonuses that we put in that allow them to reduce the lot size even smaller than 2,000. So that's how that density was measured. Based on minimum lot size. I'll just dabble a little bit, give you a residential example, I'll give you a commercial example of our downtown commercial. Each zone district has a purpose section that kind of really lays out the character of the zone district, and gives examples. And whenever we're considering changes to the downtown commercial zone, we always kind of consider whether it meets the purpose of the zone, and kind of keep true to that. Similar to the residential, multifamily residential, there's a whole set of different types of uses allowed in the downtown commercial. Previous to the efficiency measures, all residential had to be mixed use, which means that it has to be mixed with commercial in some fashion. We did change that, as some of you guys may have been involved with, created some overlay zones, which are represented in these maps that are shown figure 1, figure 2, where residential only development could occur in the downtown commercial, because we heard that was a deterrent to getting housing built. There's not a big demand for commercial anymore. Everybody wants to live above commercial. So we said, hey, let's take these areas that are kind of off the main pedestrian paths and allow people to do residential only developments. Thinking that would help spur residential development.
But you still have to keep the western frontier architecture thing going.
Correct.
Interesting. You know the history about that?
Of the
How will we get into the western theme architecture?
I've heard some stories.
I've heard some stories too. I wonder.
What's your story?
I've heard that the developers of Black Ranch insisted do it a number of years ago.
That's the same story.
Alright.
But they wanted someplace for their guests to come and get out of Blackfield.
I mean,
Offer
people at a western town.
and offer that business owners if they would improve their facades and
They were trying to.
I've heard the same story. None of my old time historians really recall that.
But yeah, we all heard the
Yeah.
story.
Pictures of what Sicily looked like, you know, a
Yeah.
long time ago, and it wasn't a western town,
Yeah,
so.
it's not too far
Like
off.
the saloon
Yeah.
was the saloon.
Yeah, so
Or
they're
like
paying
that,
other-
Same building, so it kind of just looked like that, and they hope that,
It possibly heard that Black Butte. You know, that most of the people lived, or a whole bunch of people lived down there.
Yeah.
And they wanted to have commercial, you know, things available to their community.
Yes.
But not in the community.
Right, yeah,
So they,
that's
kind of.
I just wondered why does the code apply to residential buildings? That sort of,
Well, I think it actually was like originally mixed use, everything that, residential, both in the, I think in the highway commercial and in downtown
But
commercial.
now we're making like the one she was talking about, the cottages have to apply to that same
So
standard.
it's only been recently since we started going residential.
That might be something to look at, because the farther you go out from the courts.
It gets more challenging to do.
And it is no point, right? I don't think you need to walk 3 blocks and see a residential building with a western facade, that's not, right? I don't know.
Just, I would say it just more simply, Western frontier design even applies to all commercial districts,
Right.
all development. So is there an opportunity
It should be an
to
exception.
evaluate it differently?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
but that's broadly stated in.
Or if we get bored enough as a commission, we'll.
We'd like, well, maybe sooner rather than later, what I think I've mentioned that we are, we went out for a grant to. Have a consultant to look at code audit for us to, help identify. Areas where we're not in performance with state law.
Right.
One of them being residential, uses have to be clear and objective standards, and if you read through the 1880s design standard guidelines. They're not standards, they're not very objective, so this may point out some of these areas that need further revision, and maybe it's an opportunity to just reevaluate the whole 1880s design team in general. Are we still supportive of it? Do we want to apply it to all areas, more areas where we're pulled back? But I think there's going to be an opportunity to have that discussed. Awesome. Matt pointed out that we're not making very good progress. No,
Yeah,
good
so I
questions.
realized that this could be a 4-part segment.
the code was that, dig in there yet. But now I know we get more things, so this is a great resource. The resource, is the annexation criteria also in the development code, or is that totally, that's in the municipal code?
And it's not very detailed if you go with searching for it, not a whole lot to it.
Cause I'm just curious, I'm just thinking about, on the zone, like all that stuff happens, I guess that happens with the master plan. And thinking about, people on the skip plan and then things are supposed to be multi-family, but then there's not multi-family housing, this is how annexation meets the development.
Good question. I mean, it's, it has to, well, at a time of annexation, we'll have to apply a city zone district to that parcel. And so what zone district is that? Hopefully it's there's some thought prior to that, well, not hopefully, there will be some thought.
Yeah.
Applying comp plan designations that will help guide those rezoning decisions to make sure that they're rezoning something that makes sense and identifies or representative uses that we need, have identified needs.
And once it's that zone, then the development code for that zone.
Right, yeah. Just, we'll put a on this real quick, just standards that are more, that are in the downtown commercial are to try to get that downtown commercial. We've got a great downtown, side streets. The idea is to try to keep that with new development so that it continues those development patterns where there's, transparent, glass, more commercial uses on the ground floor, having to build closer to the street. Versus we don't want big setbacks in downtown, we don't want to disrupt the flow of the pedestrian environment. And so there's a whole bunch of standards like the word multifamily, to help address that. And golden drives and all those different things, so you can kind of at your own leisure kind of take a scroll through this and see what you might learn. Like pedestrian management standards, those are things that we require to get kind of the character of the downtown that we're all looking to. And also associated with this section are, Matt had noted how different uses are permitted with special provisions. These are all the special provisions. And the purpose of special provisions, it says, is to provide standards for certain land uses, not all of them, to ensure compatibility with those uses in the zoning district. So planners, councils, planning commissions, previous have, when they looked at these things, the new uses have felt that certain uses need to have some additional standards. Some of these things in here are just standards, they're not special provisions, which are ADUs. But there's a ton of them in here, and it's something else you might want to just cruise through at some time. But one thing that is in there is our Western design theme, and if you just read the first couple of paragraphs, you can see how this was well intentioned, but it's not really legal anymore. Well, really, and it's very difficult to administer as a staff because we don't know really what is allowed. It makes it more difficult to determine what's allowed. And maybe that's good because I think it's been used by some creative developers to come up with some more creative designs that we might not have otherwise gotten. So there's textbook for it, I guess. But I think that when you read there's some language in there. Let's see, architectural styles must vary from building to building, from block to block. This variety helps generate architectural interest. There's some words like harmonious. Eli's definition of harmonious might be different than Daryl's.
And it's not defined in the definition.
There's no definitions. Those are some areas that
I would use that a lot. Harmonious basically is a lot. When you have a solid answer,
planners love that kind of language, but we're not getting away with it anymore.
Too subjective.
Too subjective. Complementary is another word that's often used in
Update for you, SoundCloud today. I was like, there's a solo SoundCloud today.
Go catch that.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's an example of things we're going to look at with this code. You as a planning commissioner are going to be involved with this because we'll present it to you, and hopefully it becomes the result of this process is model code language that we can start updating through the planning commission council with. Back to you, Matt. Is it? No. Design standards section of the code. So this is kind of in addition to the different zone districts that have specific standards for development. This design standards section also provides standards that often mostly apply to subdivisions, but also apply to site plan reviews, but are very important in determining making sure that our communities are functional, safe, aesthetically pleasing, things of that nature, including access and design, access and circulation, which covers both vehicular and bicycle and pedestrian circulation, making sure that new streets are proper, access existing streets properly, that their intersections are spaced out at a safe distance, depending on what the classification of the road is. Local streets obviously can have driveways off of there. Collector streets, you go a little faster, you want less access points on there for safety. Arterials, generally you want to really limit it to specific intersections. That's where those things happen in this section. Also allows us to require traffic studies to maybe close up an access point that is existing that is not safe through a land use request as an opportunity to maybe make a situation safer. We rely on our public works department and our city engineer to really heavily advise us on compliance with these things. You haven't talked for a while. I'm back to you.
We're going off script here. What I really want to just, I think we'll just kind of run through these quickly. Just on the sidebar, you see that we have access circulation, landscaping, screen, vehicle, bike parking, et cetera. This is where we really get into the overall, what the layout is. So for example, with landscaping, or what's your minimum area that needs to be landscaped with vegetative or other materials that aren't hardscape or the building itself. So where, how much, and what kind of work. I included is the introduced landscaping, but also this is where we touch on those existing trees, those significant trees that we talked about the definition and a emphasis on preserving those existing trees to the greatest extent practical, while still accommodating reasonable development of the site. Reasonable is one of those words again, that we should try to get away from, but you know, we're a city where we're intended to develop to the properties within the city. But we look to be orderly, efficient, and integrate within the built environment, or excuse me, the natural environment to the extent that we can, while facilitating that development. And to creating an attractive buffered site. So
The new wayfinding signs that we just were presented with the other day, would they fall into this area and the signs here, or do they go someplace else?
yeah, so under the signs section, this is your business signs. It also touches on the wayfinding or other directional signs. Some of those are exempt from the design criteria. When we're looking at business or property signs, we're looking for a Western font and design, low level, but it's the variety of types of signs that are wall, ground mounted, freestanding, etc. So that we touch on that. Can't say for certain, but I'd be looking at the section that's directional signs. They would likely be exempt from this code provision with regard to design, but I know through that project there's a commitment to tie in with the spirit and the image of the city. Yeah, but there is some interface there.
Yeah, the recent release.
So vehicle and bike parking, it's just what that is. It's standards for minimum standards and maximum, but each use category, some that are maybe not specified, but they do have specific ratios of number of vehicle parking spaces per square footage or other characteristics of the use. You know, so if a restaurant's going to have per square foot, a church or a school is going to calculate differently because it's a larger spaces where you're not maximizing the space that you made with the restaurant, for example. So minimum parking, we also have maximum, but you can't go above 120% of what that use is going to generate. And then other development standards from how it's lighted, how it's oriented, but also the vehicle space and drive aisle standards themselves. So there is a particular standard those spaces need to be in width and length. When we talk about ADA accessible spaces, loading berths if you're a larger industrial or commercial facility, etc. Also looking at bike parking, minimum bike parking standards relative to your vehicle parking standards or the particular use itself. And location for that in proximity to the building entrances, well lit, safe space, and a design that has opportunity for securing the bike to that bike parking facility. Typical is the URAP that you see. Also options are bike walkers or other ways that secure that bike storage. We touched on signs, public improvement standards, are making sure that the layout of your infrastructure from water, sewer, transportation is appropriate and efficient, and that the capacity of those infrastructure improvements are adequate to serve this use as it comes into the community. This is where we've really worked closely with Public Works and our engineer and transportation as well as civil engineering to make sure that those facilities meet those Public Works design standards. I saw you positioning for comment. I thought this was
My
real.
shoulder, these are my shoulder.
These are your wheelhouse.
I'm glad.
Maybe that's what got me.
I was looking to see if it was close to.
Yeah, did you hear it?
Last couple of chapters being the additional standards for middle housing. This is where we go above and beyond. This is part of the efficiency measures that accommodate those kind of infill or additional development opportunities. This is where we want to make sure that it's designed in a particular way, that it's well integrated into the neighborhoods that they may be located in, so that it's designed appropriately with some level of finesse and detail. And most recent update that the Planning Commission was involved with earlier this year, the adoption of the defensible space standards to mitigate against wildfire hazards. I don't need to rehash this, except to know that the City Council did take a deeper dive into this after the recommendation from the Planning Commission, and really refine it to new understanding and higher standards for creating that protection around buildings, applicable to new buildings, and again, looking to provide for right species of plants that are either existing or retained on properties, and introduce landscaping, and then maintain that vegetation to create that buffer around the building.
Just a note on that, the city, I don't know if you're right, the city is interested in creating a demonstration project for both flexible space over in the city hall lot, as well as conservation efforts. We'll be removing a lot of the turf from the back and replace it with rock and lower drought resistance.
You're not gonna like that. I love driving by it.
I know, we didn't ask them in this.
There you go.
So,
Yeah. Or anything you put in that bird.
Or.
Right.
Yeah.
Side-eyes.
we'll put replicas too. So,
Mike, go ahead.
I'm gonna quickly jump to chapter 4, if there's not any questions about the design standards. That's what we incorporated into any of our decisions. We're looking at all of those design standards. And any staff report we present to the Planning Commission is going to address some of those that are interfaced with the particular proposal. But built in here are procedures. You know, we have particular types of uses, to particular type of development and land use review, depending on the type of proposal. We have 4 different types of review, ranging from type 1, type 4. The ministerial are those more what I call a checklist review, where there's no discretion involved, doesn't meet the standard or not. And there's not a notice process, it's either approved or not, and there's your decision. That can also be building permit reviews, accessory dwelling units, those types of things. Then type Q, those are the administrative or staff level review, where it is a required notice of application, notice of decision to property owners and the public to provide that opportunity for engagement and public involvement on it. Then type 3, the quasi judicial, that's where as planning unit gets involved in that decision making process with the public hearing, and evaluating it's the same evaluation of criteria from type 2 to type 3. It's just who the decision maker is. Staff type 2, planning commission type 3. But again, emphasizing that it's the same criteria. And then type 4 are legislative. Those are the changes to the development code or the zone map. So text amendments or zone changes, where ultimately it's a decision by city council, but in between is planning commission to review the proposal against the criteria and make a recommendation to city council. Defensible space. Yeah, you got it. Another zone change example most recently was in the Heavenly Acres subdivision in southwest part of town. Was previously zoned urban area reserve, a relic of times past, not really relevant today. So we went through the process of rezoning that to public facilities and institutional to more match what the existing development pattern was in that area. But also included was a zone change of one of the lots to multifamily residential to accommodate Northwest Housing and their affordable housing project. So that's a example of zone change that we recently processed. So in the table identifies each one of those types of applications and what path it goes down. So we take this as our guidance and then work our way through what those procedures are, and noting what the review process is, the notice requirements, and how to facilitate those processes.
Would you email us, are those quick too, or you just let us know about?
Yep. And so that's a great segue into with any type 2 decision, and you see in those messages that there's an opportunity for planning commission to call up those decisions, meaning that to initiate review. So if 3 planning commissioners contact staff and say, hey, we want to take a look at this, then we would automatically bring it to you as a.
Also, all these times we just think maybe we do not, we can say, screw that, we don't like that.
Certainly, well, you could, I suppose if you don't like it, it's one way to frame it, but
Yeah.
if you want the planning commission to evaluate that. Well,
Make sure it's on point.
Right, it's not broken down like it somewhere, but we see that it may not fall according to
we
code.
want a different set of eyes.
Is it-
In light of it, it's an alternative to an appeal by a party of interest.
Does that happen in your time? Huh?
I don't think so. I think the city council has reached out and grabbed some of our stuff and taken it,
Sure.
but.
Yeah, I haven't seen it happen since.
So it's right.
Yeah.
So do want to touch on the Space Age gas station as well. So there's that opportunity for appeal or planning commission call up. Any decision by planning commission, we send notice to city council. And similarly, if 2 city councils want to call it up and review that planning commission decision, there's that option. Back to type 2. We have staff level reviews. If for some reason there's an interpretive matter or a community-wide interest or other factors, the community development director can elevate the review and instead of having via staff administrative decision, take it straight to a planning commission review. That was the case with the Space Age gas station proposal as well. I think another factor is if there's a likelihood of an appeal, to streamline the review process instead of issuing one decision, then be appealed and take the planning commission. We know where there's the likelihood of an appeal. Let's just skip the appeal and straight to the planning commission. So that's an evaluation that is done. And then lastly, the type 4, we touched on it already. That those are the text amendment changes or zone changes that planning commission does have a review role in there, but resulting in a recommendation that we carry forward to the city council. And they conduct a second public hearing and are the final decision. And then embedded within our chapter 4 are various review processes based on the type of application it is, from site plan review to those land divisions, lot plan adjustments, conditional uses, master plans, cottage developments. Like the special provisions that have additional standards for specific uses, these are the additional standards for particular proposals.
So I think it's important to note that each one of these different application types has different applicabilities that we use to determine whether it is something that would require a small of an application. Site plan review specifically is one that we often check the applicability with because there's some gray area there. Not everything is reviewed. So for instance, if an activity structure really alters the exterior of a structure, building or property by more than 25%, then it's a required review. by site plan review. If it's, you know, we don't really get into changes of use unless it's change of use from residential to commercial and industrial. So sometimes we have things that change interior wise that don't fit that out, that they don't have the ability to require site plan review, but we can still require compliance with these, with the standards, through a building permit, if we want to. We've talked some, Matt and I talked a lot about this, about the changes in the downtown, how we get a lot of different changes of use and how, you know, parking, is different based on what the type of use it is, and with limited parking can start to be kind of an issue. And, oftentimes those changes in use don't trip up our applicability in our site plan review. So we've talked about, creating a mini site plan review, which is something that is not real. Hopefully it's a quick process and doesn't cost a lot, but would allow us to kind of document and review those kinds of review those kinds of changes. Something that's, it's been on the list for a while, but we, you know, we just don't have the time to get to it because we keep getting, we have bigger fish to fry, I guess, and we haven't been able to get to it as it yet, but.
You know, as well, some criteria that you have to look at, you say it's a mini review or a full-fledged review.
Yeah, it's like a
some
minimum.
criteria you need to know what's going to go.
Yeah, it's like a minimum development standards, you know, it's stripped down, you know, from the site plan review, you know, if we had members from site plan review, there's 30 pages of findings. You know, we don't, there's a lot of those things that are just not applicable to things of small impact, but when it comes to parking, it is a big impact. So I won't go into all detail on a lot of these, but I think what an important takeaway is that each one of these applications has specific review criteria. And that's really where the rubber gets the road, you know, it's and then so I think it's something that people who are not involved with land use don't always understand, you know, it's like some people in the public just, why don't you say no to something if, you know, if the public does not like it? Well, you know, if it meets that review criteria, we're pretty much obligated to approve it. And I think that's something that the planning commissioners should, as you make your decisions, need to make your decisions based on the criteria as well. So it's something always, it's a good reminder, but that those things are very important.
I think touching on that, there may be a perception that we kind of approve everything, you know, that there's not a lot of denied decisions. I think the no or the denial comes in those preliminary conversations where someone says, hey, I'd like to do this. I'm sorry, it's not allowed in that zone district. So that doesn't rise to the level of land use application that we're reviewing and potentially denying. So it's those early conversations, education discussions that, is this viable? No, so it doesn't continue on for that.
All the reason for a better code.
So for instance, your site plan review up on the screen, here's the approval criteria that has to comply with the design standards that Matt went through. We rely on our city engineer to make sure that the public facilities, the water, sewer, and the transportation can serve this use. And the rest of these criteria are required to be, that's why we have these thick reports that are on the different, this, you know, you just look at 5, 6 criteria there, but when you open up the design standards, you're talking about quite a few different standards there that we have to comply with, in order to make sure compliance with. And then getting down to kind of the end of this section, I guess I can think of the exception was in chapter 4, but we also have these things called code interpretations, where if two, for certain phrases, 2 or more reasonable meanings, there's a, you know, say the staff takes one stance and the applicant doesn't like it, thinks it means something else, there's an opportunity for them to adjudicate that, I guess you say, where it could, you know, staff would issue a decision in terms of how we felt that the code should be interpreted. If the applicant disagreed with that, they'd be able to appeal that to city council. So there's a procedure available for some relief. If somebody thinks that we're doing wrong. Jurisdiction or something. And then there's also the declaratory ruling section, where there's a whole set of criteria where, we can, it's basically if there's any confusion, on an approval. So the staff interprets the approval to be this, and the applicant interprets it to be something else, and there's some confusion, and it's disagreed. This is a process that's available to a property owner to think that in front of the city council or in this case, I'm not sure if it goes in front of the planning commission. But there's all invariably going to be disagreements on interpretations of things, and this provides some relief to somebody to get their opinion. It doesn't happen very often, but it's a great tool.
Reading those last two, you have a lot of power.
The last two,
This one now. So,
but I can.
at your discretion is used a lot there, but.
Yeah. That's the way I like it.
Scott, can I ask you a question? Our workshops 1 hour or 1 hour?
Very good question. They're typically 1 hour. Sometimes they go to 5:15, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know some said they have to leave at 5. So we'll find a question like this. I mean, we're pretty much done. The only thing that I wanted to point out was the exceptions to the code. And that is, again, we can design standards with the best intentions to cover all of the scenarios, and we know that we can't possibly do that. And there's a recognition in the code that based on geographical situations or things of that nature, or just unique aspects to a development on a property, there are very standards in the code that somebody could request a modification or some particular requirement. So what would the planning commission like to do? I mean, we're pretty much done. I mean, if you have questions, we can hang out here and answer your questions for a while. If you want to call it good, we can do that too.
My quick closing remark is just to acknowledge the level of detail and complexity of the development code that we work with on and administer on a daily basis, both the public, but also as we serve the planning commission, present to staff report, we're going through all of these sections through a decision to help guide you to those applicable criteria.
Nothing else tonight, you showed me that your job is a lot more complex than sit back there on ours on the document.
And that again, that we have detail that we're looking at this first slash for you in those staff reports, but get you oriented to those different sections that you can drill down a little bit further through those processes.
This is great, that you should be required for all planning commissioners for that. I mean, this would have been a good, one-on-one, or one-on-ones, rather three, I think. But yeah, that would.
Well, maybe it's the second day or whatever, second thing is more.
This is really good.
Good.
Is there any commissioner comments?
I just had a quick, what's that? I just had a quick couple staff comments if there's no question or comments. One, Carrie asked me to bug you to RSVP for the volunteer appreciation party, December 2nd. The Belfry, she would like if you could RSVP by that date.
We upgraded from a lunch to a dinner. It's been awesome.
I know. It's like you guys. I was gonna give you UGB update, but I think you guys know where things are at with that. We're kind of just in the next step preparing for the use application for the county and city. Go to the website if you have any questions on it. And then we're planning our next meeting to be December 18th, so we'll cancel December 4th. Yeah,
Anything coming up?
well, I don't know if you saw the email, but you guys got an email from the woman who wanted to
Small homes.
make a presentation about tiny homes, so we'll allow her that opportunity to present that bill.
There'll be a workshop on the 2nd.
What's that?
There'll be a workshop.
Correct.
We're kind of like offsite.
Yeah, well, we don't have enough public hearing stuff to stay on cycle, so we're out letting them all that.
Hey, thank you guys so much for this. This right here was very helpful for me. I hope you guys too.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of running.
Where did they so into it? But
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
And I did want to offer a quick introduction of Sarah Vowell, our new associate planner, joined us a couple of weeks ago. Joined us from City of Redmond, so local planner with Central Oregon experience, that's has been an opportunity to really integrate quickly. So
Already we made a good, wise decision.
Yeah.
so I'm sure in the future you'll see her here before you not too long.
Is this really as you expected?
You'll get lots of emails.
Thanks.
So is there any other commissioner comments? Okay, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 17:12. Thank you.
Thanks for filling in, Rick. Thanks for filling in. Thanks for filling in. You're gonna be the next, your vice chair training.
Well, actually, I was gonna, when we were gonna do the whole chair thing back then, I was gonna raise my hand, but
You,
I got,
you might,
this is okay.
you might, we're gonna